Hey everybody, Greg Pruitt here, president of the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. This is episode 2 of Guns with Greg. Welcome and thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, share, and all that good stuff. You may be watching on various platforms. We always encourage our members to ensure that you are subscribed to our Rumble channel with all the censorship and stuff that happens on YouTube and all these other platforms. We'll continue to put out our message wherever we can, but Rumble is kind of our last resort. Please go there. Please watch there if you want to. We actually can make a little bit of ad revenue from Rumble, which is nice compared to other platforms. So please be sure to do that. All right. So I got a number of notifications from ISAA supporters and members about the Caldwell Night Rodeo. And the Caldwell Night Rodeo has decided that they are going to implement a gun-free zone at their event this week. Now, one of the main questions is, can they do that? And here's where Idaho's law and an Idaho Supreme Court ruling from a couple of years ago are really starting to impact gun owners, and the frustration is growing. We tried to tell people this after the Supreme Court, the Idaho Supreme Court, gave this opinion a couple of years ago. Excuse me. But we said, so here's the issue at hand. Idaho has what's called a preemption law, and that means on public property, cities and counties have basically no authority to regulate the possession of firearms. And that means that they can't come up with their own ordinances and gun-free zones and all this other kind of stuff. Well, right now in the Canyon County Fairgrounds, they can't do that. The county can't do that. But what the Idaho Supreme Court said is okay is if a private entity is going to use the public property, they're going to allow them to turn it into a gun-free zone. So the county and the city don't have the authority to turn that public property into a gun-free zone, but they're basically saying that if a private entity wants to do it, that's their choice. Now, we disagree with that. In fact, a lot of gun owners in other states and attorneys that have looked at the Idaho Supreme Court opinion are kind of flabbergasted. Because here's the reality. If you were to ban guns, or excuse me, not ban guns, but let's say you were going to hold an event on the fairgrounds and you said this religion or this race or this sex or this anything other than guns is banned, you'd end up getting taken to court and they'd end up saying, oh yeah, you can't do that. But as usual in the courts, gun owners are always treated as second-class citizens. So we're still fighting that. We're still working to change the preemption law to make it a lot better. But nevertheless, setting all that aside, the Caldwell Night Rodeo, by their own choice, has chosen to make their event a quote-unquote gun-free zone. And as we know, we're saying quote-unquote because criminals don't care. Mass shooters, someone hell-bent on going in that place and shooting it up is going to find a way to do it. Now, are they going to have private security, or is there going to be, Canyon County Sheriffs, Caldwell Police? There's going to be some, but guess what? The U.S. Supreme Court has already said there is no legal obligation, none whatsoever, for them, meaning the cops, to protect you. They have no legal, demand to come and save you. And we've seen that in school shootings and other places where the cops didn't do anything. You are responsible for your own safety. And so the Caldwell Night Rodeo has decided, yeah, we're going to go ahead and ban guns. You're not allowed to defend yourself at our event. It's totally asinine. It's not the Idaho way. If I had to guess, they're going to blame it on insurance costs or something like that. But what happens if there's a mass shooting and you've disarmed all of these people going into this event? So very disappointed. And here's kind of a crazy thing. Former Governor Butch Otter, who used to be, like, when he started as governor, he was pretty conservative, and over time just slowly became more and more progressive. And by the time he left, I mean, he was just a full-fledged rhino. And he is on the board of directors for the Caldwell Night Rodeo, which is a nonprofit organization, by the way. I want to say the former Caldwell Police Chief, Frank Wyatt, is also on the board. So very disappointed that they have chosen to go this route. They sent out an email to everybody that has purchased tickets and said, no guns allowed. So be sure to sign the petition. We've got a petition to let them know we are disappointed and frustrated and opposed to their gun-free zone, and are asking them to reconsider it immediately for the safety, not only the safety of the people going, but also we want them to change it because it's the people's right to keep and bear arms. And in the meantime, we're going to be working on the preemption law. But for now, sign your petition. We'll get as many of those petitions as we can and deliver them in some fashion to the Caldwell Night Rodeo so that they know there are gun owners across the state, but in particular in the Treasure Valley area that are opposed to this insanity. So that's that. The other thing is, real quick, if you guys have not seen our Idaho gun laws section of our website, you really should go check that out. It's a work in progress. We have another probably 10 questions that people submitted that we thought, oh yeah, that's a good one to have on there. So we've got great questions that we're adding, we're refining and editing. Again, everything on there is our interpretation of the laws. If you need legal advice, please go get an attorney, hire an attorney. Our answers to these questions should not be taken as legal advice. It's our interpretation of the laws. Now, we do everything we can to be as accurate as possible. We don't want to give out bad information, and we're pretty confident in the information that we have. Our attorneys are going to be reviewing each question as well to make sure that they're accurate or telling us to add additional stuff or whatever. We even talked to one of our attorneys that we hope will actually do some videos for some of these more nuanced or difficult questions, in regard to self-defense and stuff like that they can answer. So please be sure to check out that. We'll put a link in the description for the Idaho gun laws section, but it's just on our main website. Excuse me. And if you look at the action drop down, you'll see the Idaho gun laws thing on there. Really excited about that. I hope that it becomes just this really good resource that gun owners can use for understand, especially like new gun owners, new people moving here to Idaho. They go, okay, what is and what is not allowed? Well, for the most part, everything's allowed, but there are some nuances in there that we want to make sure that everybody is able to find a question to. So anyway, I appreciate that you guys have tuned in for our second episode of Guns with Greg, and I'm excited to continue to give you some more podcasts. We got some guests lined up here shortly, and hopefully the next episode will have one of those guests. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you. Take care. God bless.